Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. Here we're going through the Week 10 Sunday games, so let's get into the next preview. Jumping into our next game, you have Baltimore going to Minnesota to face off against the Vikings, where Baltimore is favored on the money line with a spread of 3.5 and a total line of 48.5. And then here's your averages as we look at their rankings. With Baltimore at a scoring rank of 13, allowed scoring rank of 26, so about average for scoring them for themselves, but not very good at stopping people. Their defense across the board isn't quite that great, with an allowed passing rank of 27, allowed rushing rank of 21. They do have Derrick Henry, of course, which keeps their rushing rank above top third, about 6, but they still have a pretty miserable passing rank. For Minnesota, they're about average to maybe a little bit below average on everything, with a scoring rank of 18, 20, passing rank of 20, allowed passing rank of 12, which is their best ranking. They're a little worse against tight ends, though. But yep, everything else offensively is about below average. Getting into the quarterbacks, you have Lamar Jackson and J.J. McCarthy, with Jackson averaging 23.8 fantasy points per game when he's in, and J.J. McCarthy averaging about 14.7 fantasy points per game. Lamar Jackson has only had one passing interception this season and one fumble lost due to a sack. J.J. McCarthy has had 4 interceptions this season and one fumble lost due to a sack. If we look at their team averages, as well as their breakdowns, both these quarterbacks have been in and out quite a bit, so this will be an interesting game to see them both in together healthy. And then if we just look at the carry share, you have Lamar Jackson with 13.5% of the team's total carries. That's probably a little down because he's been out so much, so it's spread out a little bit more down here. And kind of a similar story with J.J. McCarthy, still getting a very small part, kind of cut off, but that's probably about that 10% range. Whereas you had Carson Wentz here with about 6.3%, so a little bit shared down here as well. So then looking into the ones who do carry the ball the most, we have Derrick Henry and Jordan Mason, with Derrick Henry averaging 13.2 fantasy points per game and Jordan Mason averaging 9.8. We have a couple turnovers from Derrick Henry here with 2 rushing fumbles and another one here from Jordan Mason. But then if we look at their averages and their share of carries, you have Derrick Henry with 66.3% of the team's total carry share, despite it being tossed around between a few other people. And over here on Minnesota, you have Jordan Mason with 56.6% of the team's total carry share. Again, it being broken up a little bit with like Carson Wentz, J.J. McCarthy, and you still have Aaron Jones holding on to about 15.6% of the team's total carries here. So it's a little bit, yeah, there's some residuals from when people have been hurt, when people have come in for both these teams. Moving into our number 1 receivers, you have Zay Flowers and Justin Jefferson, with Flowers getting 13.4 fantasy points per game this season, Justin Jefferson averaging 15.5 fantasy points per game this season, with the only turnover coming from Zay Flowers as a receiving fumble. We'll move into the averages and their breakdowns as well as their receiving share, with Zay Flowers getting 35.2% of the team's total receiving share, which is, as you can see here, very much the largest portion of anybody on the team. And similar story for Justin Jefferson over here, with 37.5% of the team's total receiving share, once again being the largest of anybody else on the team. And then comparing how our number 2 receivers match up, you have Rashad Bateman and Jordan Addison, with Bateman averaging 5.7 fantasy points per game this season, and Jordan Addison averaging 14.5 fantasy points per game. With no turnovers, we'll go straight into their averages and look at their receiving share, with Rashad Bateman getting 11.7% of the team's total receiving share. It's a little smaller for a number 2 receiver, but I'm guessing they kind of favor Mark Andrews in here a little bit more, but we'll have to see that soon. Over here with Jordan Addison getting 20.6% of the team's total receiving share, which is the second largest on the team, which is what you expect for your number 2 receiver. And then with our tight ends, you have Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson, with Mark Andrews averaging 9.2 fantasy points per game this season, and Hawkinson averaging 8. Also no turnovers between the two, so we'll just look at their averages. And then for their receiving share, you have Mark Andrews with 14.7% of the team's total receiving share. So that's about what I thought, which is the second largest on the team, but they've always liked to utilize their tight ends on Baltimore here. With TJ Hawkinson, he gets a 13.5% of the team's total receiving share, which is probably about the third largest on the team. So there you have it for this matchup. I do believe that Baltimore probably wins this game, especially utilizing this rushing rank on a team that's not very good defensively, especially in the rushing game. So if Baltimore can do that, I'm sure they win this game and they control it, but there's lots of bad stats between the two of them. So it just takes McCarthy having a good passing game against a very bad team against the pass to potentially pressure the Ravens into this and take the game away from them. So I could see this one going either way depending on how the gameplay works out. So that's all I have for this game today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment on what else you might want to see in the future. Other than that, thank you so much for watching.